Greetings and welcome in everybody to an episode of DFS Diary. I am your host, Chapadon, coming at you live on YouTube, brought to you by DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for all things DFS. Head down to the comments section, click the link, DFSArmy.com, use code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Join the Army today and get better at DFS, Daily Fantasy Sports. We're going to discuss box checkers for NFL. It's Week 16, and I honestly have not realized how how attached I've become or how dependent I've become on this method because I got asked at a Christmas work party the other day a couple of questions I had to look up on my phone, look some other stuff up on my phone, do a little quick research for a couple of friends, and was like, man, if I haven't done box checkers yet this week, I'm lost. So apologize for being a couple of days late. Been tied up with other responsibilities at work, but we are here. We're going to do box checkers. We're going to come back and we're going to do another quick video on NBA, on the and one system and finding some of the value plays for NBA today. And then we're also going to come back with a shorter slate of hockey. We're going to do a little buyers and sellers. So make sure you stay tuned. And where can you find those videos? First of all, you head to the bottom of the screen there, you like and subscribe to the channel, ring the little notification bell. You get alerted to when these videos drop. But number two, you can head out to Twitter and follow me out there at Chapadong. I am free. Generally what I do is a bunch of free content. I will tweet free content for you. Occasionally I will drop some VIP stuff, premium stuff, but I'm mostly free. And as part of my January sweeps, I'm looking to buy people's memberships into January into DFSArmy.com, give you guys a sample on me, on the house, if you will. And all I ask for is that you follow me and you retweet my DFS Diary article that shows you day to day the content that we're producing inside DFS Army. So help me help you, and I will help buy you guys, whether you're a member or not. I want people to join. I want people to sign up. That's what unlocks the second and third and fourth subscription. The more I grow, the more I give back to the community. But whether you're a member or not doesn't matter to me. If you're brand new, I will buy your first month. If you are a 2-year veteran, I will buy your January for you if you win this random sweeps drawing. So let's dive into box checkers and let's figure this baby out. The easiest way to start with quarterbacks, if you haven't noticed, I think I say it every week, but we look for high team totals, we look for favored quarterbacks, we look for home quarterbacks, and then we look for efficient quarterbacks. And the easiest way to find the efficient quarterbacks is run over to ESPN.com and search total QBR. It's the metric that I've been using for a while now. I'm going to sort out these numbers. I'm going to go less than 0 to bring the favorites to the top. And then I'm going to take the team total and I'm going to take that number filter and say greater than about 23 point whatever. I get the 24s in there and the 23s out this way. It's got to be over 23.5, but 23.8, whatever the number might be. I want over 24 only. Now, this isn't a catch-all list. This isn't going to land you on a lot of contrarian GPP plays. This is designed for cash gamers. This is designed to put the quarterbacks that are most likely to hit value, that are in the most likely scenarios to hit value. It's designed to drop them in your lap and then you choose from there. We're trying to narrow our player pool down, cut through all of the bullshit, and only deal with those that are in successful positions. If we narrow our player pool down to a good solid player pool that's generally going to do well, then all we have to do is pick the right guys within that. And therein lies the challenge of DFS. I think we all know that that is still a challenge. But we're looking for home quarterbacks. That'd be the yellow guys. That puts Drew Brees on there. Patrick Mahomes' rocket arm rating has dropped a little bit this week. I wonder why that is. Drew Brees has a high rocket arm rating. Dak Prescott has a high rocket arm rating. These are guys I'd be looking for, and I'd be looking to pay down where I can in spots to where I can spend up, I guess, elsewhere at running back, wide receiver, tight end, whatever. Quarterback is such a tight spread in their point channels where they're generally going to get you, a floor of this, and they're generally, going to not be able to exceed a ceiling of, say, this, but they always kind of run at the same range, which means that the position largely scores in similar bunches of points where we can then afford to save some money and pay down because we're not really sacrificing a ton of points on the overall, on the average. We might miss the guy who breaks the slate, but honestly, that guy that breaks the slate could be a road quarterback and an underdog or something for all we know. It has some kind of outlier career game, and you just almost can't predict that. What we can predict is that Drew Brees and Andrew Luck, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, These are guys that are in good positions. Even a Baker Mayfield, 7,700. I mean, Dak Prescott has a little bit of a running floor. Baker Mayfield's been playing well in, say, a couple of the most recent weeks, the recent 3 or 4 weeks. These are generally your playables. Doesn't mean Mahomes is off the table or Goff's off the table. It means these are the guys you should be focused on, okay? If we move to running back, we do largely the same thing. We want to see red zone work. We want to see goal line carries, etc. But the main thing we want to see is we want to see who's favored. And we want them to be favored by a lot. So this 14-point spread's great. This 10-point spread's great. 13-point spread, great. I'm not too worried about the overall team total, although it definitely helps. The more points we're going to score, the more chances our running backs are a part of it. But the big spread is what tells us that late in the game, we should be using the running back to grind the clock down. He should be chewing up some of those yards late. The quarterbacks typically are not throwing in those scenarios. So again, we would love to see home teams favored and in decent implied total games, but we're looking for 3-down backs. We're looking for backs that are got a secure workload. And this time of year, honestly, pricing is pretty tough. We've got Ezekiel Elliott in a good spot. We know Kamara's still in a committee. And that was one of the things the guy brought up last night. He said, I don't know why my fantasy team fell apart in the second half of the year. I had Kamara in the first half and he was smashing. And I asked him, did you not realize that Mark Ingram came back? In a lot of cases, that's the people that we play at work, and that's the decisions that they are making. They're not thinking down the road through the season. We are thinking down the road through the season, realizing this is still a committee and an overpriced one at that. May not be the greatest. Now, can he still smash in this spot? Absolutely. But he's still likely to be splitting work. Nick Chubb, not terrible. At home, relatively inexpensive. He's been getting the carries lately, right? Definitely gets the goal line work. Patrick Lindsey's in an okay spot this week. He's on the road, but he is facing Oakland. I'm not totally opposed to road backs. He's not a big favorite, though. Dalvin Cook is a solid favorite. 7,100 is pretty cheap, and we know he's turned on the Jets here recently, right? He kicked me out. Him having a bad game actually knocked me out of my season-long playoffs, which was kind of interesting because I needed him and Doug Baldwin, and Doug Baldwin sat that week. Of course, they came back last week and they both scored, so too little too late for me. My season's over. Melvin Gordon, that's obviously something to be watching for the news. We know he missed time lately with a knee injury, but if he's healthy, he's in a great spot. Favored, implied to score some points. He's at home. We know he's the goal line back. We know he factors into the passing game. Just depends on a matter of his health. We know Baltimore's tough against anybody, running back, wide receiver, anybody, but it's still a good spot, especially being at home. New England, Sony Michel. This was an interesting question brought up too. Guy was debating whether or not he should play Sony Michel. I would say, I told him, I said, do you want the right advice or do you want the wrong advice? And he said, I want the wrong advice. I said, okay, the wrong advice is you play Sony Michel. And you play Sony Michel over the Miami guy he was debating between, the backup that's on the depth chart behind Kenyon Drake and Frank Gore. He said, why would I play Sony Michel? I said, well, it's a 13-point spread and it's a 45-ish total, and the Miami game's a 38-ish total, so it's not nearly as good. There's more points that are supposed to be scored in this, and we know that Michel's the goal line back. We know he's kind of the old LeGarrette Blount role. We know now, yes, we have a committee and we have James White and we have Rex Burkhead to worry about a little bit, but we know that they should be comfortably in the lead late in the game. I know maybe they're going to save him for the playoffs or whatever the case may be. I don't know. It's guesswork. But what we know about the running back situation in Miami is the spread is less. Jacksonville's a little tougher defense. They don't have, the points that they're supposed to score, whatever. So between those two, we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's and we're pointing at Sony Michel. And he said, okay, great. What's the right decision or the right advice? I said, well, the correct advice is don't listen to me. You've got to make up your own mind. I can tell you what the book says. I can tell you what the indicators are pointing towards. But I mean, dude, the minute I've got a thing called Oppo Chapo, if you haven't heard me say it before, I swear to you, I can jinx anybody. So if I spend too much time on Sony Michel, he's going to fall flat. And it's just going to come back to bite me in the ass. That's just DFS. A good pivot might be a James White in case that game is a little bit closer than we thought, because it's not like Buffalo's defense is terrible. And if they end up having to throw the ball a little bit, now James White's generally going to get his. But he's also had a couple of weeks that weren't so good. So Again, a lot of question marks makes this really, really, really difficult. We got Indianapolis, Marlon Mack down here in Tennessee. You're going to have to double check and make sure. Now, if everything's all systems go for Marlon Mack, I love the idea of an Andrew Luck, Marlon Mack stack. The reason why is it's pretty game script proof. I don't mind taking guys that are relatively affordable and taking all the touchdown work that comes into play for that game. If Luck throws for 4 touchdowns, I've got him. If he throws 1 or 2 to Mack, I've double dipped. I mean, I know Hines is the passing back, but sometimes he will throw one out, to a Marlon Mack. But if Marlon Mack runs in a couple of touchdowns and then Luck throws for it's a good way to capture all of the points inside an offense that is actually scheduled to score about 4 touchdowns. Okay, you've got the back for the clock grinding, so you've got usage all game long, and you've got the quarterback in case it ends up a little bit closer, like we kind of talked about in the New England game with James White. So, that said, that's just another way to attack things. I actually really like doing that in cash games. I'm not a big fan of doing it necessarily in tournaments. I feel like you really need to take, the nut approach in tournaments and really nail the best running back and really nail the best quarterback. And they do correlate positively, but it is a little bit hard for the running back and the quarterback, especially if he's more of a running back instead of a pass catching running back. It's very, very hard for them to both have slate winning type games unless they score 50 points or something like that as a team. Looking down the list a little bit more, we can see home teams. Well, there's Ingram, of course, and there's Mack again. Derrick Henry's been hot lately. He's obviously, I guess he's commanding some consideration would be the term I'd be looking for. Jordan Howard's interesting in San Francisco, even though he's on the road. Chargers backup, Justin Jackson, Kenyon Drake, we know is. I don't know why he's not colored. Don't believe he's supposed to be playing, but of course, double check it since my little cheat sheet here does not have him questionable, but it does have a Spencer Ware questionable. Looking down the list a little bit more, there's not a lot else that I would trust because we've already cut a lot of the fluff off the list. If you want to go see a guy in a different spot and he's an underdog or he's whatever, then definitely go do that. I'm telling you, historically, favorites, decent team totals, home teams, and then of course I'll use truck stick rating. Todd Gurley, didn't even mention him. I know he's questionable, I guess, with was it hip or a knee or something to that degree. At any rate, that's something to dig into. Arizona shouldn't be threatening for a guy like Gurley. That would be one of those off-list guys that you might consider, of course, if he plays. Wide receivers are always tough. When we do the wide receivers, we usually will just sort by sticky hands here. There are little things that do come into play. I've mentioned it before. Road dogs get garbage time. Significant underdogs, especially those with very low implied team totals, like down here, 17.3 big dog. Who's that? Tyler Boyd. That's a very interesting one. He's questionable apparently, but that's a very, very interesting one because that could be lined up for some garbage time. That's a good quality receiver. It's not even somebody like a Jermaine Kearse or a San Francisco receiver or somebody that you're kind of betting on, hoping that it works out. This is actually a decent indicator because it's a decent receiver that gets targets anyway. We just hope that he's healthy enough that he can, be productive. Otherwise, we're just kind of looking at the sticky hands rating here. We're looking for price outliers, big matchups, and prices. Looks like we're going to be carrying some Green Bay guys. So that would put Devontae Adams in the mix. Cobb, if he plays, is pretty cheap. Don't know how much I like that. Doesn't get the traffic, doesn't get the workload. Who else are we looking at? Who's going to pop off this list? The Houston guys are up there in their matchups. So not a Demaryius Thomas guy, but of course Hopkins is questionable. Interesting. This is just very tough late in the year. It's always, always pretty tough. And there's going to be some really, really obvious ones that you can follow throughout the industry that people are going to be on. I'm not seeing a ton of just obvious value. Corey Davis, up and down type of wide receiver. Robbie Anderson, Allen Robinson. I mean, we're going to have to take some gambles at some point. Sanu typically has a floor. I know Atlanta hasn't been great. Scantling, if Cobb is still questionable, or if Cobb, we know that we can pivot off to that one and take our shot. There's Jermaine Kearse. Imagine that name popped in there. Taylor Gabriel is another one. Cheap shot in a favorable matchup for Chicago. Wide receivers are always just a little bit tricky. Zay Jones is cheap for a number one receiver. Who would you even try to scheme away if you were Bill Belichick? Are you really going to try and scheme away Zay Jones? Do you really care that much? You're probably going to try to keep Josh Allen from running wild on you, would be my guess. But that said, I guess if for $4,800 you can make worse choices. You'd probably try to get up to a Devontae Adams type, somebody along those lines. Tight end. While that loads up, same thing is more or less going back towards what we're looking for quarterbacks, actually, which is favored over a 24. The team total becomes important at that point. So we're going to go ahead and cut that one down by 24 instead of just sort of look at it. Yeah, 233, right? That doesn't work. So we'll at least knock some of those guys off the list. And look at how low our list just immediately went. Ka-chunk. Just went down to nothing. So what we're looking for again is home teams. So Antonio Gates, I don't trust him. Ferkser, I might have to look into that one because that's a name I haven't used yet this year and haven't looked at. Another Charger and Virgil Green, and then of course we're gonna have to open up the parameters on this one a little bit. Man, that's kind of crazy. Let's take. Oh, no wonder. I said less than. I want greater than. See, fundamental flaw in the game right there. Now we've got some names. See how that changed? I'm glad I caught that. Goodness gracious. Travis Kelce is not at home. Zach Ertz is at home. We know his floor and his workload. Eric Ebron, of course. I was wondering why he wasn't on that list. Gronk, if you want to take a shot at him again. Gronk hasn't exactly been healthy this year. And Njoku, look at that sticky hands rating of 14.2. That baby's coming off the list in a big way. And for relatively cheap at $5,300, you might take your shot there. A little bit more up and down. I would still stick probably with Ebron. I think he's probably for the money about the safest on the slate. Of course, Zach Ertz has a floor, but they haven't exactly been using him in the red zone as much this year as in years past. Offensively, have just kind of been struggling in Philly. Kyle Rudolph, Jimmy Graham, don't know. Don't really like them. They're on the road anyway. So I'm guessing that's, see, I can't see myself getting off of Eric Ebron. I'll pay up for it. Still reasonably priced at $6,100. And of course, defenses, you're just looking for big spreads and low team totals and take the opponent. So if I take the spreads and sort them in ascending order, which I always get wrong, descending order. There's my big dogs up top. Here's my low team totals. So Arizona's opponent, LA Rams, defense is in play. Looking over here, New England defense is in play. Tennessee's defense is in play. Indianapolis' defense is in play. Cleveland's defense is in play. Right? That's how that works. We scroll down here towards the bottom, and we find the Rams at 4,900. Find New England at 4,300. Tennessee 4,800. Cleveland 4,400. Dallas and Tampa Bay. That one might. I don't think that's going to slide under any radars, but that's a good cheap play perhaps. Come up here and we take a look at the Dallas and Tampa Bay game, and of course low-ish point total for Tampa Bay and a big favorite for Dallas. Dallas's defense is in play and it's cheap. That might be where I end up. I'm not a big fan of taking on Drew Brees. Pittsburgh's defense isn't going to do that for me.
You need to grab your blood.
So I'm looking for a couple of these other situations. You got to apologize. I've got kids coming home from holiday break. But I would really be focused on these guys down here. I'm not going to pay up enough. I might end up on Dallas. So anyway, that wraps up box checkers in 20 minutes. It's just an easy way for you guys to start pointing direction, getting your player pool cut down in a positive way for Week 16's NFL season. So come back, like I said, we're going to go through the NBA stuff. We're going to go through the NHL stuff. And if you like this type of content, hit the like and subscribe button down there at the bottom of the video. And of course, consider becoming a VIP inside DFSArmy.com. Use code CHOP, 10% off CHOP. And what you're going to wind up doing is opening up our coaching channels where we spend an awful lot of time talking back and forth with our members, talking to them about better plays, talking to them about deeper matchups, talking to them about strategy and game theory, and making them generally better, more competitive players. If that's what you're looking for, you need to come inside. You need to do it today. Today's Friday, Paycheck Friday. I'll see you guys on the inside. Take care.